BA and MA of SGU. First of all, my name is Vanessa, and I am glad to be the MC of today's event. I would like to thank all of the students, lecturers, and all the participants who have joined us today. In this business clinic, we have invited one of our international students and a young entrepreneur to cover about sustaining FinTech's performance beyond risk management and technology. During this session, we will also be accompanied by one of our lecturers, Mr. Subowo Musa, as the moderator. Without further ado, I would like to welcome Mr. Subowo Musa. Time and place is yours.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to this SGU business clinics. So we do this on the regular basis. It's an open forum discussion, bouncing the idea and then introduce some sort of the new things that coming up, not only in the academic circle, but also in the real world. So today's topic is basically we will like to discuss the FinTechs beyond the sustaining the performance beyond the risk management and the technology. So before I will give it to Nabhel, I will just introduce some of the idea on this. So as we know that the FinTech in Indonesia has been experiencing a tremendous growth over the past few years. And yet, we also see there's a lot of failures in these fintechs, especially peer-to-peer lending. So if you look at from the, why we say it's beyond the risk management and the technology, because when we talk about the technology of the fintechs, more or less one or the other are similar. So, and the issue with the technology is quite easily to be replicated, and the rapid changes in the technology also is very fast. And also on when we talk about the risk management, again, the risk management is the things that almost all the fintech are well versed in applying the risk management. And yet we still see that a lot of fintech are failing in sustaining their performance. So with the high growth of this fintech industry, the question is how they can sustain going forward. Okay, because the environment, the technology has changed tremendously. So, and without further ado, I will just ask Nabhel. This is her one of her research study that she did for her thesis, but I already asked her to really to make it in a very practical perspective, so then we can have a fruitful discussions. Okay, Nabhel, the time is yours. I think you still mute. You need to unmute.
Yeah,
so,
thank
Nabhel,
you very much, Pa. Yeah, I need to be given the host ability to be able to share my screen. I don't know who's in charge of that, please.
Vanessa, could you just open the share for Nabhel?
Yes, done.
Okay, so thank you very much, Vanessa. Thank you very much, Possible. And thanks to everybody that is present in this business clinic webinar, where I'll be talking about the sustaining FinTech's performance beyond risk management and technology. So before I talk about the context of today, a little bit about me. My name is Fortune Nabhel, and currently I am an MBA candidate at Swiss German University. Prior to that, I had my bachelor's degree in computer science, education, and I am a creative graphic designer. Basically, I do graphics as well as UI UX at Napfix, a design startup I started. My skills and my expertise lie within graphics and branding, business development, project management, communication and teaching, So, moving forward to what we have today, the outline, I'm going to be talking about fintech in Indonesia, and I'm also going to be looking at some of the problems that are faced by fintechs and dealing with those fintech issues, as well as a question and answer section. So first, fintech in Indonesia. Well, fintech is basically finance and technology, and there are various aspects to fintech, which could include payment, lending, wealth management, market aggregators, insurtech, crowdfunding, and even analytics and AI. Well, financial innovation in Indonesia is growing positively. This can be seen from the increasing number of registered and licensed peer-to-peer lending operators under the Authority of the Financial Service Authority, OJK, in Indonesia. Sorry, my attention is a little bit divided with admitting people into the room into the webinar, since I am the host right now. So continuing with that, and also we can see the growth of fintech playing out in the payment sector in Indonesia. More recently, there's also been growing interest in Sharia fintech sector to capitalize on the very large Muslim population in Indonesia. Now, I do not want to bore you with so much of these figures, but a glance at all of these figures, you can see that fintech in Indonesia is booming and it is growing exponentially. Now, with a high rate of fintech penetration in Indonesia, a study by Aptech 2019, that is Asosiasi Fintech Indonesia, shows that fintech penetration in Indonesia has its highest level happening in Jakarta, with about 95.9% of fintech respondents operating in Jakarta, followed by the Jabodetabek area of 82.2%. Now, this is quite insightful for investors, for managers, and people who want to venture into fintech in Indonesia. On the user base, they found that about 30 million people are already using e-money. About 6.9 people are already into peer-to-peer lending. And on the offline channels as well, there are about 3 million people who are into fintech payment agents, and the areas that have been covered presently, as of 2019 rather, are about 150 quota. So with the high rates of internet penetration and the mobile phone usage, as well as quite a large number of unbanked and underbanked population, Indonesia is set to become a hotbed of fintech innovation in Southeast Asia. Yes, there have been a lot of success stories for fintech companies, but then there are some problems that are facing fintech companies. Now, there are many problems that are facing fintech companies all around the world. Aside risk management and tech problems like the issues of security, data privacy, big data and AI integration, and blockchain integration, I would be discussing about three main problems that cut across fintechs in relation with my research study. And these include, number one, competition, the issues of competition, managing customer relationships, and sustaining growth. So I will looking at these challenges and trying to offer some suggestions on how to prepare for the opportunities and the threats that are ahead. Although there is no single best answer on how to deal with these challenges, as it all depends on the nature of the organization. Furthermore, I believe that my research findings will help organizations to better target investments, identify strategic requirements, and develop the necessary operational capabilities that they need to make the most of their organizational potential. So the essence of this is to be able to help organizations to better target their investment, identify strategy, and be able to develop the capabilities that they need to move their organizations forward. And then we move on to dealing with fintech problems. Well, the first problem, which I already mentioned, is the issue of competition. Now, as a manager or CEO of your organization or the fintech organization or your organization, in terms of dealing with competition, before you start looking at externally at your competitors and what they are doing, you want to make sure that your organization has the ability to integrate, construct, and restructure its available resources to meet the constantly changing environmental setting. Now, this concept in strategic management is what we call dynamic capability. From the word dynamic capability, you can ascertain that it has to do with change. Basically, dynamic capability is simply the abilities of the organization to use its available resources to meet the constant changing needs in its environment. Now, there are basically three aspects of dynamic capability, and these include learning, integration, and competitive response. Now, I'll be taking each of these aspects one after the other. First, with learning. Now, continuous learning is like the blood the blood in the veins of fintech organization. If learning stops, then innovation stops. And if innovation stops, so does progress. Products, as products lose their competitive advantages and competitive edge, so also do employees lose their competitive edge. So, a work environment with a learning culture is one in which employees are encouraged to learn and to grow. Now, as the managers or CEO of your fintech organization, you want to make sure that you develop a continuous learning culture within your organization. Now, this is because it allows you to build great work teams, teams that can actually learn and build the skills that they need to get their work done. So, having a learning culture is critically important for employee engagement and retentions. Employees who feel that Employees who feel that they can develop and hone their own skills are more likely to be engaged. Also, for the organization, the creation, retention, and the transfer of knowledge within the organization is able to strengthen the organization as a whole. As such, learning brings about um, increased job satisfaction for the employee. It brings about low turnover rates. It also brings about increased productivity, profits, efficiency, and it enhances the adaptability of the organization throughout. So, some of the ways in which, as managers in your organization, you can promote learning include you encouraging risk taking and experimentation, you having a framework based on objectives and your key results, you having trainings and coaching programs for your employees, as well as having some light talks in the office, like, say, lunch and learn sessions. So then we move on to the second aspect of dynamic capability, which is integration. Now, in today's digital landscape, it's not enough to think about the importance of business integration only from a technical perspective. The modern enterprise has so many different systems, software applications, and processes to manage that it's so easy to lose sight of what those technologies and processes are supposed to serve, which is to serve the customers and increase business growth. Now, business process integration today is about so much more than just connecting computer systems or applications together. True business integration means that you're designing ways for all the participants in your digital ecosystem to interact seamlessly and support the outcomes important to your organization. Now, as a manager or as a CEO of your organization, you want to make sure that you have a comprehensive strategy that enables the integration, the automation, and the optimization of your key business processes that connects your organization with your partners, your customers, your suppliers, basically your supply chain. You want to be able to Collaborate across business networks of external partners where all your parties are able to exchange and integrate information, files, transactions, etc. Now, oftentimes, people are only focused on the online channels and the softwares for business integration. But to get a balance in your organization, you want to make sure that you utilize both online and offline channels to your own competitive advantage. Now, there are so many advantages of integrating your business model, and one of which is comprehensive visibility. Another one is a simplified environment. So you having a a good business integration, taking advantage of both online and offline channels, gives you a very good comprehensive visibility. And then the third aspect of dynamic capability, we're talking about dealing with the issue of competition, is competitive response. Now, competitive response is basically how you respond to competition. It is a type of competitive action that is carried out by your firm, whether directly or indirectly, you reacting to initial action, probably from your rival, or it could be from the changes in external conditions and environment. Now, how you respond to competition depends on the kind of strategy you are initiating. In the ever-changing business-to-business space, successful companies are those companies that know how to adapt when competitors disrupt the market. Now, when market changes occur due to competitive dynamics, it is crucial to know how to react to keep your customers motivated and successfully selling your products or your services. Now, a well-planned, proactive, competitive response will help your organization to realign your strategy and help you to adapt or even take advantage of a market disruption if there's any. For an organization to say that it has dynamic capability, this means that the organization is able to have a good learning culture, is able to integrate its business model, and able to have a comprehensive competitive response strategy. These are some of the ways in which fintech organizations can actually deal with the issues of competition. So we move on to the second issue, which is managing customer relationship. Now, customer relationship management is often viewed as an easy step, but most of the time it poses to be very challenging to execute. In dealing with customer relationship issues, your organization needs to have a systematic approach to providing value for your customers by establishing successful partnerships with your customers and potential customers. So before I move on to the aspects of customer relationship management, according to PwC Financial Service Technology 2020, they quote and I state that customer intelligence will be the most important predictor of revenue growth and profitability. Now, the question is, do you know what your customers value? Are you really sure, as a managers of your company, as a business development officer of your company, do you really know what your customers value? Well, customers are becoming more connected through social media, and they're becoming less demanding, less loyal. I mean, it's easy for them to switch from one service provider to the other. With easier comparison and faster switching means that relationships are becoming very brief and largely just transactional. We're already seeing that with just one click transfer, which moves your all funds, direct debit instructions, and other services to new providers with very little or effort on behalf of the customer. So in dealing with customer relationship management, there are three aspects to customer relationship. This includes customer orientation, analytical, and operational. As usual, I'll be taking each of these one after the other. First is customer orientation. Now, customer orientation is all about focusing on helping your customers meet their goals. In executing customer orientation within your organization, you're going to be doing a lot of things, yeah, as a managers or whatever positions that you're holding, maybe as a CRM officer as well. You want to be creating customer value propositions. You want, as a HRD personnel, you want to recruit customer friendly uh, personnels. Now, there's a saying that people hire for attitude and train for skills. So you want to be training your team on soft skills like communication, and all these links to learning, all of these links to the learning aspects of dynamic capability. In other words, customer orientation is initiated in the organization through learning. Now you can see the relationship between dynamic capability and customer relationship management as well. So you want to also do things like listening to the voice of your customer. You know, the benefit of having a strong customer orientation is that it helps your it helps you to find the it helps you to find what your customers really want. It helps your customers it helps you to find the satisfaction in the products that your customers actually want, which in the long run brings about loyalty and retention. Now, this is an additional information, yeah. In my study on fintech lending, I found customer orientation to have the most to be the most significant. Although all of them are very significant and very important, but customer orientation is found to be the most significant. So moving forward, the second aspect I'll be talking about is analytical. So analytical is basically the tech part of it, and it has to do with you being able to store, to analyze, and to apply the knowledge about your customers and about the ways to approach your customers, typically using things like databases, statistical tools, data mining, things like business intelligence, and report methodologies. So for you to gain an edge against your competitors and deal with the issues of CRM, getting access to this information about your customers, as well as getting a clear view of their needs, is vital. In other words, you need to use or to build the technology capabilities to get more intelligent about your customers' needs. Now, this is linked with the integration aspect of dynamic capability, as CRM is more or less the core competence of fintech companies. And then moving on to the last aspect of CRM, which is the operational part. Now, the operational part has to do with the actions. So first, you've done the orientation part, which is getting to know about your customers, and then you've done the analytical part, which is getting to actually get intelligent about what your customers want. It's then the operational part has to do with you doing some actions, actually using that data you get from the analytical to further better your CRM process in your company. So operational CRM is is a lifeline connecting your brand, your team of employees, and your prospective customers. The primary purpose is to streamline all of your business processes to offer the best customer experience. And the operational part could actually be some actions, for example, say contacting call centers, etc., etc. Now, because innovation and tech are the strengths of fintech, it is easy to assume that all customers want newer, faster, more automated services. However, fintech institutions that make that assumptions risk drifting out of touch with customer needs. The fact is, the vast majority of customers want to interact with a human being when handling their finances, when handling their money. I don't know about Indonesians, but where I come from in Africa, there's this saying that where your money is, where your treasure is, that is where your heart is. So people want to be able to hold someone accountable for their finances, not to mention the issues of security and the resistance to change that comes along with digitalization. So fintech organization need to keep customer experience top of mind. They need to keep customer experience top of mind when optimizing and upgrading uh, to a new technology. You want to make sure that you listen to your customers. And so the third issue we're going to be talking about is sustaining growth. Now, oftentimes when people talk about growth in the organization, it is perceived as financial. Take, for example, it could be likened to the company's total sales, the company being listed in the stock market, etc. There are also other aspects of growth, which could include human capital, such as the number of employees, number of establishments, number of branches, etc. Now, just as we take in vitamins and minerals to grow and to nourish our bodies, there are some internal operations carried out within the organization to orchestrate or to foster the growth of that organization. Now, this is what is called organization tax environment in strategic management. In simple terms, organization tax environment, which I like to code as OTE, it refers to the vicinity of the business entity. So to sustain growth as a manager in your organization, you have to be able to understand and manage effectively your organization's tax environment. When we talk about organization tax environment, there are three aspects to that. And they include munificence, complexity, and dynamism. Excuse me. So as usual, I'll be taking each of this one after the other. First, with munificence. Now, what is munificence? Munificence is characterized by the scarcity or the abundance of essential resources in which organizations have no direct influence on. Examples of this could be seed fundings, capital, etc. Usually, having a high degree of munificence is believed to protect the organization from environmental pressures as it induces financial and operational slackness. Now, to better understand the concept of munificence, imagine this scenario. As a fintech startup, you're seeking seed funding or capital from a venture capitalist or a foreign investor. Let's say that you've developed a very good business model, very good integrated business model, and you have a wonderful team. And then on the day of your pitch deck, you've given a very fantastic presentation to your potential investors. Now, in this scenario, you do not have control over the decisions of your investors on getting the required capital or the required funds. Now, munificence is actually a thing, a, s- a situation where you have no direct influence, but understanding that you do not have control over your environmental munificence and you being able to manage the essential resources at your disposal, whether they're in scarcity or in abundance, which they could be financial, can aid you in driving growth within your organization. And so the next one is complexity. What is complexity in this context? Well, complexity includes the variability and also the dispersion of products and services of an organization. Examples of this could include, variety of customers, variety of services that you offer, variety of players, variety of stakeholders, etc., etc. To better understand complexity, I give an example, of one of the unicorns, fintech unicorns in Indonesia. So they're into the food and beverage sector, they're into transportation and logistics, they're into laundry and massage services, they're into movies and entertainment. From all of this, you can already guess which one of the unicorns I'm talking about. For those in Indonesia, it's called GoPay or Gojek. Now, allow me to digress a little bit on this. There's something called the circle of concern and the circle of control. Now, as a manager, to be able to drive growth or sustain growth in your organization, you want to focus on your circle of concern. And your circle of concern falls under a complexity falls under your circle of concern. Munificence, although, falls under your sorry, complexity falls under your circle of control, but munificence falls under your circle of concern. So you want to focus more on your circle of control. Another example of complexity, take for example in the fintech lending sector, a number of companies are just targeting a particular vertical. Say they are into just student debt. Some of them are into farm giving loans to farmers. Some are into collecting, just connecting debtors and lenders. Now they're not trying to be so complex. They're not trying to be so complex with their services, with the products, and all of that. So, as managers of the fintech, if you want to sustain growth and also want to drive growth in your organization, you have to come up with a strategy on how complex you want your organization to be. And lastly, we'll be talking about dynamism. Now, dynamism is simply change. Dynamism is a result of the rate of change, could be instability, in external circumstances and the unpredictability or the turbulence of that change. Now, dynamism is change and it is difficult to predict. Say, for example, you wake up one morning, we all woke up one morning and then there is a pandemic. So this change could actually be internal or external. It could be internal in the organization. Say you wake up one morning and 5 of your team members are already leaving the organization, or it could be external in terms of, there's a new government regulation, a new policy that's affecting your organization. So what you want to do as a manager is to be able to understand, to be aware that these things are likely to happen, and be able to develop strategies on how you respond to these changes. Now, you see, the dynamism connects with the competitive response aspect of dynamic capability. So you want to develop a strategy on how you respond to these changes that happens within your environment. Now, the key essence of all of this is to actually ensure that your fintech organization have the agility to face rapid changes in technology, in customer needs and preferences, and the changing environment. So in conclusion, technology and risk management are necessary for fintech sustainability, but they're not sufficient conditions. They alone are not sufficient conditions for sustainability of the fintech sector. And so some of the key points that I've been able to discuss are summarized as: number one, fintech organizations, in order to deal with competition, they need to focus on building their dynamic capability. In order to deal with the issues of managing customer relationships, they need to keep customer experience at the top of their minds, and also build or utilize technology capabilities to get more intelligent about the customer needs, and also identify those aspects of the organization tax environment in which they need to improve, or they need to work on, or they need to strategize on. So before I wrap up this session on dealing with fintech issues, a quote from PwC 2020 FinTech Financial Service Technology, they state, and I quote, "To succeed in this rapidly changing landscape, IT executives will need to agree with the rest of the management team on the posture they wish to adopt." Now, will they try to be industry leaders? Will they try to be fast followers, or will they just react? Whichever direction rather they choose, they will need to devise a clear strategy to move forward. As a manager, you want to ask yourself, and this question is for everyone here: what is your strategy to move forward? Do you want to be a fast follower, or you want to be an industry leader, or you're just waiting to react to whatever situations that happen? Well, thank you so very much. I've been doing all the talking, and we've come to the fourth session where I have to do some listening and hear all your questions, and we discuss about it.
Okay, thank you, Nabhel. It's a very comprehensive overview on what are the soft side of the fintech that they have to build in order to sustain their performance. Okay, so if you look at the discussion or the presentation that Nabhel was doing, is basically there are a soft side of this competitive advantage that the company needs to build. Okay, not only the technology is important. That is your ammunition. It's your the hardware things that you need to really use it as a tools. And then on the risk management is basically on your safeguarding of it. And I think in the fintech is go beyond this just two. So you need this one that the softening side is dynamic capabilities, which is something to do that's a very, very soft issue with this dealing with the human natures, starting from the individual and then going into the organizations. And then you're talking about the customer relationship, which is that is one of the most important thing. Now, on the customer relationship, I will just later on, probably somebody would like to make a comment on this. In Indonesia in particular, when there is an issue with the customers, especially in the peer-to-peer lending, the way that they try to collect this non-performing loan, so to speak, the one in the peer-to-peer lending, they use really a harsh messages. They will send it all the messages to the their debtors' friends and the family, and in to certain extent, it can be like it's a very rude in terms of that. So I don't know how you address those in terms of the customer relationship, Nabhel. And then, of course, on the other side is on the organization task environment. This is very important because uh, the environment has changed very rapidly, be it on the munificent side, on the complexity, as well as on the dynamism of it. So with these three point of view is to ensure that the organization would like to needs to be agile in terms of responding to the changes. So that's one my question on the customer relationship. And then I will open to the audience. If you have a questions, either you can send it through the chat line or you can just uh, unmute your audio and then you just ask directly. Any anything anyone to questions input?
Okay. Uh, good afternoon, everybody.
Just
Good
state your
afternoon.
name and you know.
My name is Anissa from MBA batch 37. Very good presentation. I have some things to ask you. FinTech in 2018 to 2019 was growing. How do you think about 2020 and forecast for 2021? The second, is Syariah fintech in Indonesia bigger than conventional one? Because as a Muslim, honestly, I never heard about the big fintech Syariah. I still use conventional one. And the last, competition. Fintech is high competition, but for me in customer side, it was opportunity because we can get many promotion from the fintech company, but it can affect to low brand loyalty. How do you think about this? Thank you.
Okay. So maybe I'll start with Sabowa's question first, or I start with yours? Okay,
It,
I will start
up
with.
to you.
Okay, I can start with yours. So the first question is about the forecast for fintech for 2020 and 2021. Now we're already seeing that um, our lives have been affected by pandemic, and I could be wrong, yeah, but with what we're seeing right now, everything seems to be automated, and we're in situations where people would need access to financing more than ever. And so, fintech, most especially the lending sector, which has always been the forefront and the biggest sector in Indonesia, it's going to experience more and more expansion in that aspect because a lot of people will be needing access to financing. And so, fintech would continue. Its fact is going to be a very booming sector in Indonesia. And so you talked about, you've never heard about the Sharia fintech. Well, it is an upcoming development. It is quite new. It is still upcoming. Now that you've heard about it, I believe you can do some research about it as well. So, and then you talked about the brand loyalty. Like I already mentioned in my presentation on customer relationship, that is one problems for the fintech. You know, it is very easy for customers to switch from one player to the other, from one product to the other, from one service to the other. And as a fintech managers, in order to manage that, you want to be able to know, you want to be able to ascertain what your customers really want, and that you do very much of your analytical using that, using what you get from your analytical aspect of your CRM strategy, and then you implement it in your operational. So it has to do with why are people not using your services. You have to do some analysis on that. And then the questions from Sabowo asking about, you know, the hash ways in which some fintech companies are taking back, you know, in order to take back the debts and from the borrowers. They use some harsh practices to do that, like sending messages, WhatsApp messages, threatening their families. Now all of that has to, it is a problem of customer orientation. It is a problem of customer orientation because in customer orientation, you want to actually help your customers to get the satisfaction from your products and services, and you want to be able to put yourself in your customers shoes. You want to be able to do that, and some of these companies need to really focus on their customer orientation in order to fix that problem as well. uh Possible.
Okay. Is there any other questions?
Yes, I have a question, Pa.
Okay. Go
I
ahead.
have a question, Pa.
Go ahead.
Yeah, Pa, I want to ask Nabhel. And if we look at the fintech industry, for instance, which is discussing about, we look about the fintech industry, how, when you talk about sustainability, how do fintech industry will be able to withstand the up in blockchain industry? You know, like they both contradict themselves. The blockchain industry will disrupt the fintech industry in future. So you're talking about sustainability and all, but how do we adapt to this new technology, the digital, what's it called, the legend, digital ledge technology? How can we sustain it in fintech?
Okay,
Okay.
so this is one of the problems of technology. Yeah, in the beginning, I mentioned about, you know, blockchain integration, and it is one of the tech problems. For fintech to, well, it is not part of my presentation, but for fintechs to be able to utilize this technology, it's more or less them being innovative enough to be able to integrate it into their business models for them to survive, because in the fast pace of technology, it's either you follow it, you are changing, or you die. That's it. It's either you follow the technology, you follow the trends, or you're kicked out of the market. So fintech organization, in order to they need to be able to utilize, integrate this new technology into their business models to be able to survive come in the future that is coming.
Okay, I think it's very good. I think with the tech, that is the issue with the technology. And then that's why like nowadays is the disruptive forces that is actually, when we call it how to sustain your performance, on the other hand, we will see also sustaining disruptions along the way on that. Okay, so I think organization, I think from my perspective is we need to have a very strategic mindset to begin with. Then that strategic mindset has to be also able to deal with this disruptive. Okay, so is there any other question? I think that is a good questions on the new technology that also disrupt the existing technology, and we will see that continuously going forward in the future, especially in the business area. Anyone wants to add into this discussion? Anything? I see there are some people also from the fintech companies. What is the role of the regulators, Nabhel, in all these disruptions happening, in your views, with respect to this organization past environment in terms of the complexity and the dynamism? Because I think the regulators also needs to be aware. Otherwise, we can see there's a lot of misuse in terms of this technology by so-called fintechs, but then they are really it's not really doing with a high integrity. And how would you address those things?
Okay, in terms of the regulators, they serve as a guide. Yeah, they serve as a guide both to the users and to the players and the investors of the fintech. So basically, regulators also would be needing this fintech integrations into their policies, and they need to be aware about all of this to be able to, come up with the policies in order to guide the people on how they utilize this new technologies.
Okay, I think that is a good idea of it, because the way that I see it, regulators usually one step behind the players in the market. And I think the regulator can also apply some of your finding here in your research. It's very interesting, which is especially on the dynamic capability, as the regulators also, they need to enhance these dynamic capabilities. Okay, let me just open for one more question. If there is, let me count 3, 2, 1. Okay. So I just, all this material, we will provide it to all the participants. And once again, I would like to say thank you for all the participants. And this is one of the example of the research studies that is done at the SGU that is also, I think is very applicable to the business, real business sense. And I think that's what we are trying to do. And going forward, we also, for the information for the participant, we will conduct this type of talk on the regular basis. So then we can actually, this is the venue to exchange ideas and sharing ideas. And this is probably the first time that we will do this for this type of format. And I would once again thank you, and I would just give it back to the MC. Now, if for those of you that have a question, more question, you can also channel it to the SGU, the MC, and then she will disseminate to us accordingly. Okay. So Vanessa.
Yes. Thank you,
Okay.
Pak Musa. Okay. Now let's take a group photo, shall we? Okay, so can everyone open up their camera? Okay. Okay then, let me count to 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay. So that will conclude our event today. But before we go our separate ways, I would like to inform you to fill out the attendance and feedback survey that can be found in the Zoom chat. If any of you are interested to join our MBA or MA at SGU for February 2021 intake, please do not hesitate to contact us. We will be glad to give you all the information you need. I'm Vanessa, would like to apologize for any mistake and thank you for your participation in this event. Till we meet again, probably in the next event or other business clinic event by SGU. Hope we all stay positive and our test result always negative.
Okay, thank you everybody, and have the rest of the evenings.
Bye-bye. Have a good day.
Terima kasih juga.